Hello everyone, welcome to an introduction video to Python programming in Visual Studio. We're going to be looking at how to create a couple of different types of variables. Variable for integers, integers are whole numbers, and another variable for strings, and strings are letters that maybe make up words and sentences in some way. So in order to do this, we're going to start off by making a variable, and in the Python interpreter videos, we were able to do a or apples to represent our first variable, and we're going to do that again for this lesson. This is a fruit calculator program. So apples is equal to a number, like 5, and in order to print that a value out into the terminal, we have to type this function called print. Print apples. And when we click start, it compiles all of this code and it prints out the message 5. 5 is the value that's associated with the variable of apples. In the Python interpreter, all we had to do was type in just apples, and it figured out that we were trying to print out whatever that data was that was stored. Now, what we need to do today is take this a step further and write a program that's more dynamic. It allows the user to select how many of the fruits that are associated with apple, or how many of each type of fruit there is, like apples or bananas or whatever. So instead of setting apples equal to a number, we're going to set it equal to an input, something that the user types in. So to do that, we say input, apples equals input, and you'll notice in my editor here it turns green. It's a function and it's an input, and it's going to take what the user is doing and it's going to save it as a string. So input, and we're going to type out a message that the user can see, something like number of items. In this case it's apples, and conventionally it's really great to put a colon or a arrow caret, something like that. The user knows, oh, this is a place I'm supposed to type in something. So apples, the variable, will be stored as whatever they type in, and this message gets displayed on the screen. It's a lot like print. It puts this on the screen for the user to see. So let's click start and let's check it out to see what that looks like. Number of apples. So there's the string, and whatever the user types in is going to get stored as a string. Now, for this case, if we type in 5 and we print out apples, we see that it's 5. The problem with this is 5 isn't really supposed to be a string. It's treating 5 as a word and not as a number. And you'll see why that's a problem. Because if I were to copy this, and anytime you're programming and you have something you know that works and you only have to change just a little bit of it, using your keyboard commands, Control-C for copy, and going down a new line and hitting Control-V for Victor, for paste, is really helpful because I know that the syntax, the grammar here is pretty much the same. All I need to do is make this bananas. And for a moment, I'll just get rid of this print line by putting a hashtag. And this is a comment. This is a way to leave notes behind, but it's also a way to disable certain elements of your script so that you don't have to worry about them being used or being broken, something like that. So if I click start now, it's going to say apples is an input based on this string that it tells the user number of apples, and I'll say it's 7 and the number of bananas is 4, and I push enter again and the program is done. But if I wanted to say print apples plus bananas, because it's like, okay, I'm ready to get the total, I want to see what these numbers added together equals, and I type in number of apples is 3 and bananas is 5, I get a total of 35. Well, that's a problem, because that is not the right answer, and it's because it's treating them as words. It's treating it as a string. We need it to consider these values as integers. So to do that, all we have to do at the front of this input function is make sure it converts the string into an integer. So to do that, we can type in int for integer, and then an opening parenthesis, and you'll notice it doesn't have a close. If you highlight it, there's no closing parenthesis here at the end. But if I add one, now there's a pair, right? There's one to go with the other. And we have to do that on this one as well. So both apples and bananas input from the user will be an integer, a number. Now, when we click play, start, and it asks us for number of apples, and we'll say 4, and the number of bananas, we only got 1 banana, we have 5. So we were able to concatenate and or we were able to not concatenate, but we were able just to take our integers and print them out on the screen with a correct total. Now this can be done like a lot of things in a lot of different ways, and perhaps rather than saying just apples and bananas as our print message, we want to print out the total. So for total, we don't need a user input anymore. All we need to do is just say there's a word called total, and the total is apples plus bananas. Now this time it will compile the program and once again run in a form where it asks us for the number of apples, say 9. For number of bananas we've got 13, and it prints out the total of 22, which is awesome. So it's working. We've got our integers and they're being added together and we get the correct value. Now where things can get a little bit messy is when you start to add a string to the total, because it's not super intuitive and user-friendly just to print out a number, 22. We want to say something like your total number of fruit is, and we're going to do that now. So inside of our script, it's really helpful to write some comments. So let's put a comment here at the end of the line. Because it's not at the beginning, it doesn't turn off the code that follows it. So because it's at the end of the line, we can put that comment here. Ask the user for number of apples, and we can copy and paste that, and we can ask the user for the number of bananas, get the total of apples and bananas. And I mean, the great thing about Python is you can pretty much read it and you can see what it's doing most of the time, at least in this sense. And we can tab these over so it's a little bit cleaner. Okay, and then print out the total. Now, we want a message that displays the total number of fruit in a sentence. And if we were in this line to say print your total fruit is, we need a space because Python will take those spaces and they will use them when it prints out the message. And we want to make sure that there's a gap between the sentence and the string and the integer. So let's test it. So print out a message that says your total fruit is, and then the total, let's see, number of apples is 5, number of bananas is 4, and oh, we got an error. It's because we can't concatenate what is now an integer, which used to be a string. Our total used to be a string, and now it's an integer. We need to tell it to, okay, take that value and bring it back as a string so that we can put it in a sentence together. So we do that by typing in str for string, and we have an open and a close for our variable total, and an open and a close for our print function. Okay, so let's go ahead and run it now. Number of apples is 7, number of bananas is 9, and your total fruit is 16. Yay, we did it! Longer video than I expected. Probably could have done this in 2 videos, but that is pretty much the gist in how you can get user input. You can assign it to either a string or assign that user input to an integer. In this case, we needed the inputs to be integers. And then when we print out a message at the end, we need to be able to use that integer and again to tie in with our string and display a message. And that message is your total fruit is, plus adding in the integer values for apples and bananas. Okay, that's it. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed the video, and hopefully we'll see you in the next one. Go ahead and give this a try maybe now with new fruits and maybe new strings and messages to make it more your own, more personalized. Okay, take care.